On a freezing Pittsburgh night, a former Navy SEAL hears a sound so small, most people would miss it. Behind rusted containers by the river, a mother German shepherd is found tied up, shaking, guarding 3 puppies inside a cracked plastic bin. Jack Mercer could have walked away. Jack Mercer did not. But the men who dumped her want their property back. A black SUV starts watching the clinic. A lock gets tested in the dark. Then, Jack Mercer walks into a job interview and gets humiliated in front of everyone, until the CEO steps out and says one sentence that turns the whole building silent. And what happens near the docks a few nights later will expose something Pittsburgh tried to hide. If this story hits your heart, share it. Comment what Jack Mercer should do next, and subscribe. The river that swallows noise. Winter in Pittsburgh came quiet and stubborn. Low clouds pressed down on the Monongahela, and the wind carried that sharp river cold that slipped through every seam, even when the streets looked calm. Jack Mercer kept his head down as he crossed the back lot of a half-dead warehouse strip near the water. He moved like a man who had learned to waste nothing. Not time, not words, not energy. Tall and broad-shouldered, he looked built for hard work, but there was a tired edge to him that no muscle could hide. His left knee still argued with every step, turning his walk slightly stiff, slightly guarded. He wore the same thing he always wore when the temperature dropped and the world felt like it wanted to pick a fight. A navy winter parka that hit mid-thigh. Under it, a red and black plaid flannel, faded jeans, brown low-cut leather boots that had seen more winters than he cared to count. Beside him walked his German shepherd, 5 years old, black and tan with upright ears and amber-brown eyes that missed nothing. The dog stayed close, calm and controlled, the way Jack liked his life. A simple vest marked "Service Dog, Do Not Pet" sat on the dog's back, but the dog did not act like a symbol. He acted like a partner. Jack was on a short delivery run, the kind that barely paid but kept the lights on. He had taken the job because it required fewer conversations and fewer explanations. After the Navy, people asked questions like they were entitled to answers. Jack preferred work that did not care who he used to be. He stacked the last box in the van, shut the door, and let his hand rest on the cold metal for a beat. He listened to the world the way he had been trained to listen. Not for drama, for truth. The dog stopped. Not a tug, not a bark. Just a sudden stillness, like a switch flipped. Ears forward, nose lifted. Eyes pinned toward a line of rusted containers near the riverbank. Jack followed the dog's gaze. He heard wind. He heard a distant truck. Then he heard something else, thin and rough, like breath scraped over a dry throat. A small sound. Not loud enough to call attention, loud enough to matter. His stomach tightened in a way he recognized. It was the same feeling he got when a room looked normal but was not. Jack walked toward the containers, boots crunching lightly on dirty snow. His knee stung, but he ignored it. The dog stayed at his side, scanning, steady, silent. Behind one container, half hidden under broken pallets, sat a large plastic storage bin with a cracked lid. Thick rope wrapped around it in messy loops, cinched hard. Someone had not tied it to keep it closed. Someone had tied it to keep it shut. Jack crouched, slow, deliberate. He could smell it now. Damp fur, cold metal, something sharp like fear. The dog's nose touched the bin. The dog looked up at Jack once, not begging, not panicking, just informing. Jack pulled out a small utility knife and cut the rope. The fibers snapped with a soft pop. He lifted the lid. A mother dog flinched backward so fast her body hit the plastic wall. German Shepherd, black and tan but dulled by grime and exhaustion. Her ribs showed. Her coat clumped into wet knots. Around her neck, angry red marks cut through the fur, the kind left by pressure and pulling over time. In the corner, 3 puppies huddled together, barely bigger than loaves of bread. Their eyes were open but glassy. Their bodies trembled, and they pressed into each other like they believed warmth was something that could be borrowed. The mother's lips curled. Teeth showed. Not because she wanted to fight, because she could not afford to trust. Jack felt something hot rise in his chest, then settle into a hard, quiet anger. Not the explosive kind, the kind that made decisions. He did not reach toward her right away. He kept his hands visible. He kept his voice low. "Easy," he said. "Nobody's pulling you anymore." The mother dog's eyes flicked to his face, then to the dog beside him. The German Shepherd did not move forward. He did not loom. He simply sat, steady, like a wall that did not threaten but would not break. Jack took off one glove, then the other, as if small rituals could make the world less frightening. He peeled his parka open and slid it off, laying it on the ground like a blanket. He reached into his bag for a water bottle, poured a little into the cap, and set it down near the bin. He waited. The mother dog stared at the water. Her breathing shook. Then she leaned forward and drank like she expected it to disappear. Jack exhaled slowly. He had seen fear in men. He had seen it in children. Fear in an animal looked the same, only simpler. It wanted one thing. Not love, not comfort. Safety. He scooped the puppies carefully, one by one, and placed them on his parka. They made small sounds, weak and pleading. The mother dog tried to move, but her legs wobbled and she nearly collapsed. Jack stayed close, but did not touch her yet. "Still with me," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "You're still here." He lifted the bin slightly to make room, keeping his body between the dogs and the open space behind him. That was when the air changed. A voice came from the shadows beyond the container line. "Hey, that's mine." Jack straightened slowly. He turned his head first, then his shoulders, giving nothing away. 3 men stepped into view. The leader was in his early 30s, clean enough to look respectable from a distance, but his eyes were flat. His smile was a thin line that never reached his face. He wore a dark jacket and moved like he enjoyed taking up space. Tyler Kane. Jack did not know his name yet, but he knew his type, the kind of man who called cruelty business and expected the world to nod along. Behind Tyler stood 2 others, bigger, quiet, with hands tucked into pockets like they were holding back impatience. Their faces carried the bored hardness of men who did what they were told and never asked why. Tyler's gaze dropped to the mother dog. He smirked. "Put it down," he said. "That's my property." Jack's jaw tightened. He kept his voice even. "She was tied up and dumped like trash." Tyler shrugged, like that was not his problem. Like pain was just a detail. "Still mine," he said. "You don't want trouble, old man." Jack's eyes narrowed. He was 40, but he understood what Tyler was doing. It was not about age. It was about disrespect, about pushing buttons to see what would break. Jack stepped back toward the van, keeping the dogs behind him. "No," he said. Tyler laughed once, short and sharp. No? The two men behind him shifted their weight, ready to move. Jack felt his knee ache, a dull reminder that his body was not the same as it used to be. But his mind was steady, his timing was steady, his boundaries were steady. He opened the van door and set the puppies inside first, wrapped in the parka. The mother dog tried to climb in, slipped, then scrambled, nails scraping metal. Jack supported the bin just enough to help her without grabbing her. She made it inside and curled around the puppies like her body was the only shelter she trusted. Tyler stepped forward. Jack lifted his hand, palm out. Not a threat, a line. "Don't," Jack said. The German Shepherd stood, close at Jack's side. No barking, no lunging, just presence. Tyler noticed the service vest, noticed the dog's stillness, and something in his smile wavered for a half-second. He was used to fear. He was not used to control. Tyler's eyes hardened again. "You'll regret this," he said. Jack met his stare. His brown eyes were warm when he chose them to be. Right now, they were sharp. "You should regret what you did first," Jack said. Tyler's mouth twitched, like he wanted to spit out a comeback, but could not find one that landed. He stepped back, but his gaze stayed locked on Jack, as if trying to memorize him. "Enjoy your little rescue," Tyler said. "I know where places like you live." Jack did not answer. He closed the van door. He got in. He started the engine. As he drove away, the river slid past like a dark ribbon. The sky stayed low and gray. Pittsburgh kept its secrets the way a winter city always does. But Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel, and he made one silent promise. He would not leave that mother dog behind again. And if someone came looking for her, they would find more than a tired man with a limp. They would find a line they could not cross. The clinic with the flickering sign. Snow fell in thin, restless sheets, the kind that looked gentle until it soaked your sleeves. The streets of Lawrenceville glowed under streetlights, and the wind smelled like river water and old steel. Jack Mercer drove with both hands steady on the wheel, even when his left knee throbbed every time he pressed the pedal. The van heater worked just enough to keep breath from turning into frost inside the cab. In the back, the rescued mother dog shifted in the storage bin, her body curled tight around 3 trembling puppies. Jack kept listening for sounds that meant danger. A tail of headlights, a turn taken too late, a shape that stayed behind him 1 block too long. Nothing followed. Still, the silence did not calm him. It never did. Silence was just a room where memory had space to talk. He parked outside a small veterinary clinic with a flickering neon sign that looked like it had been fighting winter for years. The building was narrow, squeezed between a bakery and a closed thrift store. Warm light spilled through the front windows, soft and ordinary, which made it feel almost unreal compared to the back lot where he had found the dogs. Jack stepped out into the cold. Navy winter parka, red and black plaid flannel beneath it, faded jeans, brown low-cut leather boots. He moved around the van carefully, feeling his knee complain, forcing it to behave. His German Shepherd came around with him, calm and alert, wearing a simple vest marked, "Service Dog, Do Not Pet." Jack opened the back doors. The mother dog flinched at the sudden light, then pressed herself tighter around the puppies. Her eyes stayed wide, scanning for rope, for hands, for pain. "It's just a door," Jack murmured. "Nobody's tying you again." He lifted the bin slowly and carried it inside. A bell chimed. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and wet coats. A woman behind the counter looked up from paperwork. She was in her mid-30s, hair pulled back. face tired in the way of someone who had learned to stay kind even when she was running on fumes. Her eyes moved fast, trained on details, not drama. That was Dr. Emily Carter. Her gaze dropped to the bin, then to the mother dog's raw neck. Something tightened at the corner of her mouth. "Bring her back," Emily said, voice firm, not loud. "Careful with the puppies." Jack followed her through a hallway lit by buzzing fluorescent panels. His service dog stayed close without pulling, his presence quiet but protective. In the exam room, Emily washed her hands and knelt by the bin. The mother dog growled, weak and shaky. It was a warning that lacked confidence, like she was repeating a line she used to believe in. Emily did not flinch. She did not reach for the dog right away. She spoke softly, the way people speak when they mean it. "Hey, sweetheart, I'm not here to hurt you." Jack watched Emily's hands, the careful distance she kept. He respected that. Trust had to be offered like water, not forced like medicine. Emily examined the mother dog's neck first. She parted the dirty fur and traced the red marks with her eyes. "Rope burn," she said. "Deep pressure. Not one moment. This happened over time." Jack felt that quiet anger return, hot under his ribs. He kept it there. Anger was useful only when it did not control you. "She wouldn't let me touch her," Jack said. Emily nodded. "She's been taught hands mean pain. We can work with that." She checked the puppies next, listening to their tiny breaths, feeling their bellies, watching their movements. They squeaked as if the world was too big and too cold. "They're alive," Emily said. "That's the good news. The rest depends on the next 24 hours. Jack did not realize he had been holding his breath until it left him in a slow exhale. "How much?" he asked. Emily named a number. It was not small. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out cash. He set it on the counter without counting it in front of her. Counting felt like bargaining. Bargaining felt like making life a transaction. Emily started to protest, then stopped. She simply looked at him. "You're not a regular rescue group," she said. "No," Jack replied. "Just a guy who couldn't walk away." Emily's eyes softened for a heartbeat, then returned to practical focus. "We'll treat her. She needs fluids, antibiotics, and warmth. I'll keep her here tonight if I can clear a corner." Jack nodded, and the relief came with a new weight. If she stayed here, she was safer. If she stayed here, she was also easier to find. He turned toward the front desk, and that was when he heard the raised voice in the waiting room. A man in a pressed sweater stood near the counter, arms crossed, chin lifted like he owned the air. Behind him, a young woman held a folder to her chest. She was in her mid-20s, slim, cheeks pink from the cold, hair tucked under a knit cap. Her coat was worn at the cuffs, clean but tired. Her eyes were wide, and her lips pressed together like she was trying not to tremble. That was Hannah Price. The man's tone was sharp, impatient. "I said no. We don't need someone with no experience. This is a clinic, not a charity." Hannah swallowed. "I can learn. I'm good with schedules. I can be early. I can work weekends." He gave her a look that was meant to shrink her. "Look at you. I need someone presentable." Jack stopped walking. His knee hurt. The cold bit. The room smelled like wet wool and old defeat. He recognized the moment. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was common. Someone with power taking a small pleasure in saying no. Jack's service dog stood at his side, still as a shadow. Jack could feel his own pulse in his throat, but he kept his voice steady. "She's asking for a job," Jack said, "not permission to breathe." The man turned, startled that anyone had spoken back. He looked Jack up and down, taking in the navy parka, the flannel, the boots, the service dog. "And you are," the man asked. "Who, exactly?" Jack held his gaze. "Someone who doesn't like watching people get kicked when they're already down." The man scoffed. "Mind your business." Emily stepped out from the hallway then, hands still damp from washing, eyes sharp. She looked from the man to Hannah, then to Jack. Emily's voice was calm, but it landed hard. "It is my business. I'm the one who signs off on hiring." The man stiffened. "Doctor, I was just—" Emily cut him off with a small shake of her head. "I need someone patient. Someone who can stay kind when things get messy. She can start with phones and cleaning. I can train her." Hannah's eyes filled, but she blinked fast, trying to hold herself together. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't waste it." Jack felt something shift in his chest. Not triumph, not pride. Something quieter. The feeling of a small wrong being corrected before it could turn into a permanent scar. Emily turned to Jack. "Your dog is well trained," she said, nodding toward the service vest. "He keeps me from making bad decisions," Jack replied. Emily almost smiled. "Then we have that in common." Through the front window, Jack noticed a dark SUV idling across the street. It sat too still, too patient. He could not see the driver clearly, only the shape of a head, the glow of a screen. His skin prickled. He did not say anything. Not yet. Saying it out loud would make it real in a way he did not want Hannah to feel. Jack looked back at the hallway where the mother dog and puppies were being carried deeper into warmth. He told himself one thing, simple and stubborn. He had brought them out of the cold once. He would not let the cold find them again. The people who sell pain. The wind sharpened overnight, pushing sleet against windows like handfuls of gravel. Pittsburgh woke up gray and restless, and even the river looked uneasy, dragging slabs of ice along its surface. Jack Mercer stood in the clinic parking lot with his navy parka zipped high and his red and black flannel visible at the collar. The cold sank into his knees, especially the left one, like winter knew exactly where to press. His German shepherd stayed close, service vest plain and readable, ears upright, amber-brown eyes scanning the lot with quiet precision. Jack had come back for a follow-up. That was all he told himself. A simple errand, a normal act. But he could not stop listening for the echo of that voice from the container yard. "That's mine." Inside, the clinic smelled like warm air fighting disinfectant. A humming space heater clicked near the front desk. Hannah Price greeted him with a nervous smile that tried hard to be professional. Her hair was pulled back neatly now. Her worn coat was gone, replaced by a simple clinic cardigan. She looked more put together, but her eyes still carried the cautious hope of someone who had learned not to trust good news. "Dr. Carter's in the back," Hannah said softly. "Sadie's calmer today." Jack nodded. He did not let himself feel relieved too early. Relief was a luxury that life liked to punish. He glanced at the glass door. The street outside was wet and shining, and across it, a dark SUV sat idling like a thought you could not shake. The windows were tinted. The vehicle was positioned just far enough to look accidental, just close enough to be a warning. Jack's jaw tightened. He kept his face steady for Hannah's sake. His service dog looked once at the SUV, then back at Jack. Not asking, reporting. Jack walked down the hallway, boots quiet on the tile. Emily Carter met him in the treatment area, sleeves rolled, a faint crease between her brows. She looked like someone who had seen too many creatures come in broken. "She ate," Emily said. "Small amounts, that's good." Jack exhaled. "And the puppies?" "Still fragile, but they're hanging on," Emily replied. Then her voice lowered. "Jack, those marks on her neck, they're not from a single tie-down. Someone dragged her, repeatedly." Jack's hands curled into fists inside his pockets. A memory tried to rise, a flash of rope, of pulling, of helplessness. He pressed it down. He would not let the past decide what he did in the present. "I want to keep her here tonight," Emily continued. "It's safer medically." Jack thought of the SUV, thought of Tyler's smile. He did not like the word safer anymore. Safer usually meant someone had stopped looking, not that the danger was gone. Before Jack could answer, the front door chimed. Footsteps. Heavy. Unhurried. Jack knew that rhythm. People who were actually in a hurry moved differently. People who wanted to be noticed took their time. He turned. Tyler Kane stood in the hallway like he belonged there. Early 30s. Dark jacket, clean lines, confident posture. The kind of face that could pass for charming if you didn't look at the eyes too long. Behind him were two men with thick necks and blank expressions wearing hooded coats. Their hands stayed in their pockets, but their shoulders were ready. Tyler's gaze went straight to Jack, then to the service dog, then past them toward the back rooms. "Morning," Tyler said, voice smooth as oil. "Nice place you found." Emily stepped forward, chin lifted. "You need to leave. This is private property." Tyler smiled at her the way people smile at a locked door they plan to break later. "I'm just here to collect what's mine." Jack's service dog shifted a half step, placing his body between Jack and Tyler without making a sound. Tyler noticed the movement and paused. It was subtle, but it mattered. Tyler's eyes slid to Jack again. "You really think you can keep her?" he asked, nodding toward the back. "That dog's worth money." Emily's face tightened. Worth money was the phrase that turned a living creature into an object, and she heard it the way a doctor hears a lie. Jack's voice stayed low. "She's not a product." Tyler shrugged. "Everything is a product. You just haven't been paid enough to believe it." Jack felt something cold settle in him. Not fear, not rage. A clarity that made his next words simple. "Get out," he said. Tyler's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm going to," he said. "But first I want you to understand something." He took one slow step closer. The two men behind him mirrored it. "You don't know who you're messing with," Tyler said. "This city has a lot of dark corners. People disappear in dark corners." Emily's voice was sharp now. "I'm calling the police." Tyler lifted both hands, mock innocent. "Go ahead. I'll be gone before they show up. And you'll still be here." His gaze returned to Jack. "You're the type who thinks being tough means being right," he said. "But you're not tough anymore. You limp." The word hit exactly where Tyler meant it to. Jack did not flinch. He had been called worse by better men. He had limped through pain that Tyler could not imagine. "You want her," Jack said. "You'll have to do it the right way." Tyler laughed. "The right way is expensive," he replied. "I prefer the cheap way." He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping so it felt like something whispered into Jack's ear. "I know where you sleep," Tyler said. "And I know how to make a complaint sound believable." Jack stared at him. Brown eyes, warm by choice, sharp by necessity. He did not blink. "You say one more word," Emily warned, "and I will file a restraining order." Tyler stepped back with a small sigh, like he was bored. "All right," he said. "Keep your little charity project." And then he looked at the service dog. "That one's trained," he said, almost appreciative. "I like trained things." Jack felt his stomach twist. The dog was not an object either. The dog was the part of Jack that still worked when everything else hurt. Tyler's smile returned, thin as a blade. "See you soon," he said. He turned and walked out. His men followed. The door chimed again. The sound was too normal for what it meant. Jack stood still for a moment. Emily's hand was clenched around her phone. Hannah peeked from the front desk, her face pale. Jack could see her trying to decide if she should be brave or invisible. Jack forced his voice to soften. "You did good," he told Hannah. "Stay inside. Lock the door." Hannah nodded quickly, swallowing hard. Jack left the clinic with his service dog at heel. The sleet stung his cheeks. The parking lot lights blurred in the wet air. On the drive back to his small warehouse room, Jack's mind did what it always did when danger circled. It made maps. It counted exits. It searched for mistakes. He hated that part of himself. Not because it was wrong, but because it proved he never really came home from the war. That night, he fed the service dog first, then sat on the edge of his cot with his boots still on. His left knee ached like a warning flare. He listened. At first, only wind. Then a faint scrape at the back door. Not a random animal. Not the building settling. A deliberate sound. Jack stood. His service dog rose instantly, silent, eyes bright. Another scrape. A soft metallic click. Someone was testing the lock. Jack did not turn on the light. He moved to the side, placing himself where the door would open into empty space. He breathed slow, controlled, like he was teaching his own body to behave. The lock gave a tiny shudder. Jack's voice cut through the dark, calm and flat. "Leave." Silence. Then a low chuckle outside, swallowed by wind. Jack felt the line between his old life and his new one disappear. Tyler wasn't just watching anymore. He was coming. The interview that turned into a trial. Morning broke without color. A hard frost glazed the sidewalks, and the wind off the river made every breath feel like it had teeth. Jack Mercer left his warehouse room before the sun had fully climbed. He did not sleep much. Not after the lock had shuddered under someone else's hand. Not after he had heard that low chuckle outside his door and realized Tyler Kane had stopped testing the edges and started pushing inward. Jack moved through the cold with his navy winter parka zipped and his red and black flannel showing at the collar. Faded jeans, brown low-cut leather boots. The familiar weight of those clothes steadied him, like a uniform that reminded him who he was when his thoughts tried to unravel. His German shepherd stayed close at heel, wearing the simple service vest that read, "Service dog, do not pet." The dog's ears were up, his amber-brown eyes scanning the street in quiet sweeps. No barking, no pulling, just attention. Jack's left knee protested with every set of steps, but he carried the pain the way he carried everything else, without ceremony. At the bus stop, he checked his phone and saw the message again from the delivery company. Account suspended, contract paused, investigation pending. The words were clean, corporate, bloodless. Jack could almost hear Tyler's voice behind them. "I know how to make a complaint sound believable." For a moment, Jack felt something dangerous inside himself. The urge to solve the problem the old way, the direct way, the way that ended with someone on the ground and the world briefly quiet. He let the feeling rise, then he let it pass. That wasn't who he wanted to be anymore. Hannah Price had texted him the night before. She had apologized 3 times in one message, as if kindness was something she needed to earn. "I know a place hiring logistics, downtown. It's decent work. The manager is difficult, but it's a real job." Jack had stared at the screen a long time. Not because he doubted her, because accepting help still felt strange. In the military, you depended on others, but you called it duty. In civilian life, help sometimes came with hooks. Hannah's help didn't feel like a hook. It felt like a hand. Jack took it. Now, the city's tall buildings rose ahead, glass and steel catching the weak winter light. Downtown Pittsburgh looked polished from a distance. Up close, it was like everything else. Cold, crowded, and full of people trying not to slip. He reached the lobby of Vaughn Logistics Group 10 minutes early. Marble floors, a security desk, a wall of awards that glinted like proof of importance. The air smelled like expensive cleaner and warm electronics. A guard at the desk looked at Jack's service dog first. "Service animal," Jack said before the man could ask. The guard's gaze moved to the vest, then to Jack's face. He hesitated, as if weighing whether a rule mattered more than a person. Finally, he waved them through. Jack's knee tightened as he crossed the lobby. The dog stayed perfectly beside him. Jack felt eyes on his boots, his faded jeans, his navy parka. People in suits didn't like reminders that real life existed outside their glass doors. He checked in at reception. The receptionist offered a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Interview for the logistics coordinator position?" Jack said. She typed, then nodded toward a row of chairs. Jack sat with his dog at his side. The dog settled immediately, calm as stone. Jack's mind worked in the background, mapping exits, noting reflections in glass, listening for footsteps that sounded wrong. He told himself to stop. This was an interview, not a threat assessment. But the body remembers what the mind wants to forget. A door opened. A man stepped out with the kind of confident irritation that filled a room before his words did. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Hair combed and perfect, face clean-shaven, eyes sharp in a way that felt less intelligent and more judgmental. His suit fit him like armor. His smile was thin and practiced, like he used it to keep people at a distance. Mark Delaney. His gaze landed on Jack's dog, and his expression tightened as if he'd stepped in something unpleasant. "What is this?" Mark said, not bothering to lower his voice. "This is a company, not a rescue station." Jack stood slowly, careful with his knee. "He's a service dog." Mark scoffed and glanced at the vest. "Of course he is." Jack didn't respond to the tone. He had learned that some people fed on reaction. "I have an interview at 10, Jack said, holding out the printed confirmation. Mark took the paper between 2 fingers like it might stain him. His eyes flicked over it. Then he looked Jack up and down, taking inventory of every detail. The navy parka, the red and black flannel beneath, the faded jeans, the scuffed boots. Mark's mouth curved in a cold half-smile. "Look at you," he said. "And look at that dog. We don't hire people who can't present themselves properly. Clients expect a certain standard." Jack felt heat flare behind his ribs. Not because Mark insulted him. He didn't care about that. He cared about the easy cruelty, the casual certainty that dignity was something you bought. Jack's voice stayed steady. This is a logistics job, not a fashion show. A few heads turned. The receptionist stopped typing. The lobby seemed to pause, listening. Mark's cheeks reddened, the way some men react when they realize they're not the strongest voice in the room. He snapped, "Security! Get him out!" 2 guards began to move. Jack didn't step back. He didn't step forward. He simply stood his ground. His dog remained at heel, silent and controlled. Mark leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Jack could hear. "You think you're special because you rescued a stray," Mark whispered. "This city is full of strays." Jack's eyes narrowed. The words felt too specific, too informed. Jack's stomach turned. Tyler had said he could make complaints sound believable. Tyler had said he knew how to find him. And now this man, this manager, was talking like he already knew Jack's story. Before Jack could speak, the elevator doors behind Mark slid open. An older man stepped out with quiet authority. Late 50s or early 60s, silver hair, posture straight, expensive coat over a tailored suit. His face carried the calm weight of someone used to being obeyed, but his eyes weren't cold. They were watchful. The kind of eyes that had seen consequences. Richard Vaughn. The guards froze the moment they saw him. Mark's posture straightened, as if pulled by a string. Richard's gaze moved across the lobby, then stopped on Jack. His eyes sharpened, then softened, as if he was staring at a memory that refused to stay buried. He took a step closer. "Jack Mercer," he said slowly, almost testing the name. Jack's brow creased. He didn't recognize him at first. He had pulled a lot of people out of bad situations. Faces blurred over time, but some moments never did. Richard's voice grew rougher, not with age, but with feeling. "Years ago," Richard said, "in Afghanistan, a convoy hit. I was trapped. A man dragged me out and told me to keep my head down. He didn't ask for thanks. He didn't even give his name." Jack's chest tightened. A flash of dust, heat, shouting, and one decision made in a second. He remembered the weight of a stranger's arm over his shoulder. He remembered thinking, "Move, or you both die." He looked at Richard, and something clicked. Richard turned his gaze to Mark Delaney. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Mark," he said, "what did you just call my benefactor?" Mark swallowed hard. "Sir, I was just handling a disturbance." Richard's expression stayed calm, which somehow made it worse. "A disturbance," Richard repeated. "Or a man trying to earn an honest living," Mark stammered. "He brought a dog into the lobby." Richard cut him off with a single lift of his hand. "Pack your things. I don't need a manager with such a lack of character." The lobby went still. Even the air felt frozen. Mark's face drained of color. For a split second, anger flashed in his eyes. Then fear swallowed it. Jack didn't feel satisfaction. He felt something heavier. Because this wasn't just Mark being rude. This was a system that allowed men like Mark to decide who deserved a chance. Richard looked back at Jack. His voice softened. "Are you here for an interview?" he asked. Jack held his gaze. "I'm here to work," Jack said. "Not to be saved." Richard's lips twitched, almost a smile.
"Good," he said.
"Come into my office. We have a lot to discuss." Jack glanced down at his service dog. The dog looked up, calm and steady. Jack followed Richard toward the elevator, but his mind stayed in the lobby for one last beat, locked on Mark's face. Because a man like Mark didn't just wake up cruel. Someone had taught him that cruelty was useful. And Jack had a sinking feeling. Tyler Kane was closer to this company than anyone wanted to admit. The ending the river couldn't hide. The storm didn't roar, it lingered. Snow drifted in slow spirals around the docks, and the river kept moving under a skin of ice, as if Pittsburgh itself refused to freeze completely. Jack Mercer stood near a chain-link gate at the edge of a warehouse district, collar turned up against the wind. His navy parka looked almost black under the sodium lights. The red and black flannel at his throat was the only warm color in the scene. Faded jeans, brown, low-cut boots planted firm on packed snow. His left knee ached, but he didn't shift his weight. He had learned that pain could be background noise if you didn't let it become a voice. Beside him, his German shepherd held still, service vest plain and readable, service dog, do not pet. Ears up, amber brown eyes moving in measured sweeps. The dog didn't bark. He didn't pace. He watched the way Jack watched, like both of them understood that silence could carry information. A week earlier, Jack had been a man trying to keep his head down and pay his bills. Now he had a visitor badge clipped inside his parka, and a new job title he still didn't quite trust. Richard Vaughn had put Jack under the company's internal security lead for a probationary period. Not as a favor, but as a test. "You know how to see what others miss," Richard had told him in the office, voice low, eyes steady. "I have a problem near the river, and I don't want it handled loudly. I want it handled correctly." Jack had nodded then, because correctly was the only language he still believed in. The internal security lead, a thick-shouldered man named Alan Briggs, waited a few steps away with 2 guards. Alan was in his late 40s, close-cropped hair, face set in a practical frown. The kind of man who didn't waste emotion on what couldn't be fixed. He had asked Jack once, bluntly, if Jack was going to go cowboy. Jack had answered, equally blunt, "No, I'm going to go careful." Tonight was careful. They had tracked patterns for days. Which docks got deliveries that didn't match manifests? Which containers sat too long with fresh padlocks? Which employees showed up on night shift when they weren't scheduled? Jack didn't need to guess where Mark Delaney fit into it. Mark's confidence had been too practiced. His knowledge of the rescue had been too specific. Men like Mark didn't get bold without a reason. Jack also didn't need to pretend Tyler Kane had gone away. Tyler had only been waiting for a better moment. Alan gestured toward the row of containers stacked like sleeping beasts. "Unit 14B, he murmured. "Manifests as empty, but it weighs heavy." Jack's breath fogged the air. He turned his head slightly toward his service dog. The dog's ears twitched toward a faint sound. Soft, irregular, like a tiny rhythm trying to survive. Jack felt something tighten in his throat. Not anger, not fear. Recognition. He moved closer, slow. He didn't announce himself. He didn't shine a light too early. The dog stepped forward half a pace, nose lifted. He sniffed, then paused, then looked back at Jack. That look was the whole message. There's something alive in there. Jack crouched near the container's side. A rough hole had been cut near the bottom, just big enough to let air in. Whoever did it knew they couldn't keep living cargo sealed tight. They just didn't care if it suffered. Jack pressed his ear closer. He heard it clearly now. A faint whine, a scrape, the soft thud of movement in tight space. Alan's jaw clenched. "Jesus," he whispered. Jack stayed calm because calm was a tool, not a mood. He lifted his hand and signaled to the guard with the radio. "Call it in," he said quietly. "Now." The guard spoke into the mic, voice controlled. There was no panic in the words, only procedure. Police had been alerted days ago through Richard's legal team, but they needed confirmation on the exact container before moving. This was it. Jack stood and backed away, keeping the gate in view and the container in his peripheral vision. His service dog remained at heel, poised, eyes bright. Minutes stretched. The wind blew snow across the asphalt in ghostly ribbons. Then headlights rolled in low and fast. A black SUV. Jack's stomach dropped like he'd stepped off a ledge. Tyler Kane emerged from the driver's side with the same smooth confidence, as if he owned the river and the ice and the darkness too. He wore a dark coat, hands bare, face calm. The kind of calm that came from believing consequences were for other people. Two men stepped out behind him. Tyler looked at Jack and smiled. "Well," he said, voice carrying, "look who got himself a badge." Alan Briggs stiffened. "Sir," he said to Jack, "we should fall back." Jack didn't move. He didn't step toward Tyler either. He held his ground, steady as a post. Tyler's eyes flicked to the service vest. "Still got your trained dog," he said. "Still pretending you're the good guy." Jack's voice was low. "Leave." Tyler laughed softly. "You think you can tell me what to do now?" He nodded toward the container. "That's my business." Jack felt the urge to rush forward and stop it with his hands, but he didn't. He didn't let Tyler pull him into a messy moment. Messy moments were where people got hurt and evidence got lost. Instead, Jack looked Tyler in the eyes. "You're standing between yourself and a pair of handcuffs," Jack said. "You just don't know it yet." Tyler's smile faltered for the first time. "What?" Sirens rose in the distance, faint at first, then sharper, cutting through the wind. Tyler's eyes narrowed. He turned his head toward the sound, then back to Jack with sudden fury. "You set me up," Tyler hissed. Jack didn't deny it. He didn't boast either. His voice stayed even. "No," he said. "You walked into your own trap. That's what happens when you think you're untouchable." Tyler lunged forward a step, and one of his men moved with him. Alan raised a hand, ready to intervene, but Jack lifted his palm. "Wait." Jack's service dog shifted subtly, weight forward, silent warning. Not aggression, a boundary. Tyler saw it and stopped, breathing harder now. The sirens grew louder. Blue lights flashed against container walls, turning the yard into a cold strobe of truth. Police vehicles rolled in. Officers spilled out, forming a line with practiced control. No shouting, no chaos, just the sound of boots on ice and radios clicking. Tyler backed away, eyes darting, searching for an exit. An officer approached, voice firm. "Tyler Kane?" Tyler froze. Hearing his name spoken like that, official, measured, changed the air. He wasn't a ghost anymore. He was a suspect. His jaw worked. "You got nothing," he snapped. Jack nodded toward the container. "Open it," he said quietly. The officers cut the lock and swung the container doors wide. The smell hit first. Cold urine, damp fur, fear. Inside, dogs huddled in cramped crates and makeshift cages, bodies pressed together, eyes wide and shining. Some had muzzles tied. Some had raw marks on their necks. None of it was dramatic in a way that made it entertainment. It was just ugly. Real suffering packaged for profit. One dog let out a weak cry, and the sound sliced through Jack's chest. Jack thought of Sadie's trembling body in the plastic bin, thought of her puppies shaking under his coat, thought of how close the world always was to deciding something was disposable. He swallowed hard. Alan turned away, face pale. One of the guards whispered a curse under his breath. Tyler's shoulders sagged, just slightly, as if the weight of what he had done finally landed on him. Then he tried to run. He didn't get far. 2 officers tackled him on the icy ground and cuffed his wrists. Tyler shouted, cursed, struggled. The sound felt small compared to the quiet inside that container. Another officer read out additional names. Mark Delaney's name was among them, connected to payments and access logs that Richard's team had traced. Mark hadn't been in the yard tonight, but his shadow was. Jack didn't smile. This wasn't victory. It was cleanup. Later, as dawn softened the sky, Jack drove back toward the clinic with his service dog in the passenger seat and a heaviness in his chest that didn't hurt like his knee. It hurt differently. In the clinic, Emily Carter stood with tired eyes and steady hands as rescue groups arrived. Hannah Price moved like someone who had found her backbone, guiding crates, offering water, speaking gently to frightened animals. Sadie, still healing, watched from a warm corner, her body curled around her puppies. When she saw the rescued dogs come in, her ears tilted forward. She trembled once, then stood. Not to fight, to witness. Jack knelt slowly, knee protesting, and kept his hands open. Sadie took a cautious step toward him. Her nose touched his fingers, light, unsure. Then she held there for a second longer than before. A tiny trust, earned, not demanded. Jack let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding for weeks. He glanced at his service dog, who watched the room with quiet pride, like he'd been waiting for this moment too. Jack's mouth twitched into a rare smile. "Looks like you've got more teammates now," Jack murmured. His dog's ears flicked, as if agreeing without making a sound. Outside, the river kept moving. The ice cracked and drifted. Pittsburgh didn't suddenly become kind, but something hidden had been pulled into daylight. And for the first time in a long time, Jack felt like the world had paid back a small piece of what it owed. Some days, people think a miracle has to be loud. It has to shine. It has to appear as something impossible. But sometimes, a miracle is simply a person who stops in the cold, hears a tiny cry and says, "You're safe now," with a steady heart. Jack did not win because he was stronger than everyone else. He won because he did not turn away. And in that ordinary moment, you can see the hand of God. Not always as a wide-open door, but as a small sign, a timely chance, a helping hand placed exactly where it is needed, reminding us that goodness is never wasted. In everyday life, we all face our own containers. Someone overlooked, an animal mistreated, a person judged because they are tired, struggling, or not seen as good enough. When we choose kindness, we are saying evil does not get to define the world. And sometimes, that kindness is the way God reaches into another life, the same way Sadie was pulled out of the dark. If this story touched you, please share it so more people remember that kindness still exists. Comment what you would do if you met a Sadie in real life. And subscribe so we can keep spreading stories that heal. Wishing you and your family peace. May God bless you.